Hey everyone, this is Adam at KreatureKid, and welcome to the creation of the Turtle Monster. So this piece was brought to us to be a surprise Christmas present for Hunter. So we started with going to Hunter's favorite concept artist, Romek Art on Instagram. Allison really wanted this to be a cute tortoise, which is Hunter's favorite animal. So we started with just a digital sculpture of a tortoise, and then kind of figuring out what's creaturey about it. And we kind of landed on this driver, a little tiny creature basically piloting the tortoise. Me, Romek, and Allison kind of were coming up with different ways of how the tortoise is split open and the amount of teeth and stuff, creating the little like nest that the creature is living in. And landing on color as well. Different tones of pinks and purples, and figuring out what kind of feels more natural and creaturey. And then once we land on the finished concept art, we take it to Federico Gallo, who's one of our digital sculptors, and he interpreted this just basically into 3D, pretty much trying to match the concept art as close as possible. Then we just start going into figuring out how to dissect the piece for 3D printing, as well as how we're going to end up making traditional molds. Now for traditional mold making on a lot of these, we're just kind of doing quickie silicone brush up molds with a hard resin jacket. So essentially the rubber is capturing the detail and the hard shells on the outside of that is holding the main shape of the components together. Now a lot of these are just kind of slapped together really quickly because we're only going to ever make one turtle monster, so we only need a mold to hold together just for a part, and then we're probably just going to throw them away afterwards. This is simply just the steps of transitioning a 3D printed part into a fiberglass part. With the head of the turtle, Mariah Keirns, our sculptor here, covered the whole head in Chavant clay and refined all the scale work on the head and refined like the weathering of the beak. Then it's ready to traditionally mold. So with that, we actually ended up redoing it as just a block silicone mold and rotocasting this out of smooth cast 300 resin. You're rotating your silicone block mold to have a couple layers of resin, and then we're filling it up with rigid foam to just make it a solid component.
Turtle head on a stick.
Once we have all the parts of the turtle, and they're all in fiberglass now, then it's just assembling them. For a lot of these, we're just assembling with screws, using dental acrylic adhesive to attach all the parts together. And then we're using Magic Sculpt to reconstruct, details where the seam lines are and blending all the parts together. The little pilot character was fully 3D printed on the Elegoo Jupiter SE. We split him in two parts, and he was just solid resin 3D printed. We didn't want to bother with filament because just the layer lines with the amount of detail on him would have been a nightmare. So he's just a full resin print. The pilot was also seated into the fiberglass shell. We had to kind of cut and grind areas to get him situated just right. This whole section here we got to cut out. Okay. Just a big opening. Air cutter. Get it out of there. And then using tin foil to fill up gaps and Magic Sculpt to kind of reconstruct the bubbly intestines kind of wrapped around, like kind of squeezing him in. Once the turtle is fully assembled and everything's ready to go, then we move on to painting. So for this guy, once you have your finished resin piece, obviously all this handling and gluing together, you got to give it a full scrub down of isopropyl alcohol. And then we start putting in our base colors. Now for a fine art piece like this, we're mostly using acrylic paints. We're using a lot of different techniques. We're using airbrushing to create a lot of dots and freckling and things like that. So we're using a lot of dry brush, which is just having a little bit of paint on a brush and then just hitting the highlights to kind of just make it feel dry, right? You want the tortoise to feel like he's a dry desert tortoise. Now for the inner part, like the intestines and the little creature, that's all airbrushed. Mariah Keirns was modeling all kinds of veins and pinks and purples. hand painting the little creature's teeth and gums and his weird little glowing eyes. Now the teeth around the little shell are all 3D printed as well on the Elegoo Jupiter SE. And then we grafted them onto the shell and kind of contoured the intestines to fit the little teeth all the way around them. We're also doing a lot of washes on the head, so that's just when you thin down your acrylic paints with water and you kind of like put it on areas where the water kind of seeps into the cracks, and you can kind of brush off with a paper towel the highlights to really kind of get in all kinds of details when you don't want to sit there and hand paint all the little crevices.
Did you just say piggy paws?
Got big ol' piggle.
Big ol' piggle?
Turtle piggy paws.
Once we finished the painting steps, there was still something missing as far as like the in-between of the organic, gooey, vibrant pink colors of the creature-y area and the dryness of the tortoise shell. So what we ended up doing is stippling latex, like kind of like a purple tinted latex, all around the shell and the opening. And what you do is you stipple your latex and then you hair dry it so it's dry, and then you just rub areas with your finger, and that like opens up little holes essentially and gives it a very web look. I mean, this is a technique used on like the eggs in the Alien movies and stuff. It's all just latex and then rubbed out. You're literally just kind of rubbing the holes, and it's a really cool organic-y, webby kind of look. And that was a really nice blend between the monster and the tortoise, to kind of feel like it's growing and just living in there. We also automotived the inside with a high gloss to make it feel really goopy and slimy. Once the automotive's applied, that solidifies all the latex and prevents it from like coming off over time. We ended up throwing this one in the truck for a delivery, so we got to deliver it and sneak it in for Hunter for him to open on Christmas Day. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave any questions and comments down below.